up, we're going to go over to the NBA and quickly have a chat about the Lakers trying to go after UConn head coach Dan Hurley for their vacant head coaching spot. And it pretty much it lasted about 3 days, I want to say, of rumors of the Lakers trying to take a shot at him. There was an after. Jesus, it's late. There was an after. I said it again. After. Offer. Offer. Offer.
We're basically drunk at this point.
Oh.
If you thought our Utah segment was bad, just wait.
Drunk on
The later it
Powerade.
goes, the more drunk we get. Yeah.
Anyway, there was an offer of reportedly 70 million for him to leave Connecticut, where he has won back-to-back NCAA championships. He sat on it for a few days. Everybody got excited because the Lakers might be signing a coach who isn't a podcaster, who does their podcast with the star player. And then he went, nah, I don't really feel like being LeBron's hand puppet, and went back to UConn, which is totally fair. I will come out and say that. I think he's as a Lakers fan who doesn't watch as much anymore because I just don't enjoy the NBA as much. I will say that I almost feel like the Lakers are too good for him. I feel like if he was to come to the NBA,
Yeah.
if he was to come to the NBA, I feel like it needs to be a spot where he has full creative control. And he wouldn't be getting that in LA. Like, even when LeBron's gone, I still think there will always be a little bit more politics in a place like Los Angeles. Like, you'll never be able to rebuild a team around youth. That'll never be a thing with the Lakers. They always need to be contending because that's their whole bit, right? They are the constant contender of the NBA. And I just don't think that works with a coach like Hurley. And this is coming from me, I would have loved it if he came here. I think the second I heard this was a rumor, I was instantly on board. But I think JJ Redick is going to work a lot better as a hand puppet, and that's just the end of it. I think it sucks that it's not going to happen. I hope this isn't the only NBA offer that Hurley gets. I think he just signed back with Connecticut. So I think he is staying down there for good. But
and he already has. I think it sounded like it was going to take a lot to move him, and I mean, obviously, I think you're right in that he wanted a role with a lot more control because reading this article from The Score, I think it's a really good article by Joseph Casario. I believe is how you say his name, talking about how, like, basically all the reasons why the Lakers weren't a good fit for Hurley, and I think one of the best points he makes is echoes something you just said, in terms of in college, you do have a lot of influence over how your roster is shaped, over how you coach your players. Like, I think there's a reason we see a lot more like iconic coaches in basketball come from the college ranks. You look at like a guy like Coach K at Duke or John Calipari or any of those guys versus like a lot of that stuff in the NBA where it is like just kind of this huge personalities coach doesn't necessarily fly to the same extent because you can't kind of coach up like LeBron in the same way that you can coach up a bunch of like 19 to 21-year-old college kids, right? Like, can you imagine? I know one of the biggest, because I'm not huge into basketball in general, but I'm getting to March Madness, and one of the things I'm just taken aback with Dan Hurley and watching some UConn in March Madness was just like how intense he is and how into the game he gets. And like I remember they were playing their game against the six. No, they're playing against the 16 seed, and I think they were winning by like 40 at half, and he was pissed. He was like, "This is terrible. Like, we're playing like dog shit, basically." And you could tell he meant it. And you can't do that to LeBron. If you go to LeBron and say you're playing like horse shit, I don't know what he's gonna say, especially at this point in his career. So I think that has to be a big thing in terms of not having that same level of control. I do think the Lakers probably need somebody like that, but I don't know how or if it would work.
Yeah, no, and that I agree with everything you just said there. I do think that much control is available in the NBA, but you need to prove it. It's very rarely worked, but when it does work, the coaches usually end up sticking around for a long time. I think Greg
No.
Popovich is the first one that pops up in my head, right? Where he operated his team with basically a no fun. He was the Bill Belichick of the NBA, to put it
Yeah.
in that sort of sense, right? The other one,
Still kind of is.
and he still kind of is Spoelstra is the other one in Miami, where
Yeah.
he's been around for a good decade now, and he actually had to deal with LeBron. I think he is the one coach that was able to get LeBron to play his system. Right? That is the
Yeah.
one that he is the one coach to be able to do it. So if you were to ask me if I could handpick any coach in the NBA to be a perfect fit for this Lakers team, give me Spoelstra. But since that's not how the world works and I can't have nice things, we're going to get JJ Redick, which I mean, it's nice for LeBron because he's probably the only coach who would be maybe willing to play Bronny James 20 minutes a night, considering his dad pays his paychecks. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah. I do think it is definitely it's a hard turn, I think, between the two, or at least how we view the two, right? Because I think if Hurley comes in, like that's a significant long-term investment. I think that's thinking past LeBron. I think that's thinking how are we going to develop our young talent. And I reading up on it more, I heard that was a big part of the Lakers' pitch to him when they interviewed with Hurley to say here's why you should come to the Lakers. It wasn't as much about like you get to coach LeBron James. It's we have what we think is a solid wealth of young talent, like Austin Reeves being one of them, um, and Rui Hachimura, I believe is how
Yeah.
you say his name, was another one that they're bringing up in conversations with him and saying like here are some young core players that we have and we can continue to build upon. Um, this is what we're bringing you in for. That's very clearly a long-term plan. Versus JJ Redick, some people in the comments of the JJ Redick video already made were making the point of like basically, hey, let the guy have a chance before you go and criticize him. And I mean that's fair, but I do think it is quite a big assumption and leap to make that he's going to be successful. It very much feels like a short term. If this works out, we're going to look like geniuses. But if it doesn't, we can fire him in a year and then just like reset the whole system. It's a very different change in philosophy, and with how big of an offer they made to Hurley and how much it seemed like they were pushing for him, at this point, Reddick really does feel like a fallback plan, even more so than he already did.
Yeah, and we already talked about the article that they have here on it, but a really good point that I was not thinking about at all is how similar it is to maybe it's a little. It's not necessarily as similar with the spot that LA is in currently, but it's very similar to the situation that happened back in 2004 with Coach K turning down a position in LA again to remain at Duke. The only difference being the spot LA was in at the time being coming off 4 NBA Finals appearances in 5 years, obviously. So
Yeah,
it's a bit I don't know. I don't know. It's a weird spot to be in if you're LA because I feel like you need to start looking for more candidates that are more your middle ground. Your 2 candidates that you currently have are not necessarily anything that big. I think it's overall a loss for LA. I think Hurley would have been really good. So as a Lakers fan, I'm a little disappointed, but it is what it is. If
yeah,
Hurley
and
was
I
the
think
coach, I probably would have watched more games.
yeah, I think it would have brought a lot more attention. In terms of the middle candidates, I do think it's important to mention. James Borrego is another candidate that they are looking at. Formerly the coach of the Hornets, I believe he was with the Pelicans most recently. Yeah, and then I think he's kind of been thrown up there with Reddick, um, to say he's got a big connection with AD. Obviously, having been coaching in New Orleans. So I think that's another thing to say. Like, that's more of a middle ground where obviously an experienced assistant coach has experience as a head coach. That feels like more of a middle ground versus like swinging for the fences with Hurley, taking a random pot shot with Reddick, and that feels like more of a middle ground. In terms of the difference between those two, having a middle ground like Borrego versus going for just kind of like a shot in the dark with Reddick, as a Lakers fan, which do you prefer? Like, do you want them to kind of take a wild shot and see what works, or do you just kind of say, like, play it safe?
Oh God. Um, I don't know. Of course, I want the best option who no longer is available. So it's a little. No matter what, I'm a little heartbroken. Reddick would be the best for comedy reasons because I think that would be a very interesting dynamic that they would have in LA for the one season he would have the job. And I don't know. At this point, I don't know if I care who they sign because they'll just be a bit of a puppet for LeBron to call his own plays anyway. So it. I guess at the end of the day, it almost doesn't matter too much to me. Like, what I mean is I know what to expect at this point out of the coaches that the Lakers are going to sign to help out LeBron. So I that's why I'm so confident it's going to be Reddick. Because at this point, who does LeBron want? He wants Reddick, right? And I also almost think it makes the most sense. You give LeBron a coach who's a friend for his probably final year in LA, assumingly.
Yeah.
So it makes sense for those reasons. Does it make sense past that for any tactical or experience reasons? Not really, but I guess that would be my one argument for why Reddick makes sense. After this season, you can sweep it all under the rug, fire Reddick, let LeBron retire, and restart, which is what I think is probably going to happen. Which isn't a bad thing. It's certainly not a bad thing, but
they really are in limbo until LeBron retires. Hey, like I think
a little bit.
I think they're going to probably go into rebuild mode as much as they can as soon as he does, and they're just waiting to hit that button. Because I think ever since they
West
won,
is so
I think
good. Like, that's the main issue. Like, you can't win with just LeBron and AD anymore. I don't even feel like the teams
especially necessarily as they continue to age.
I'm not like, and yes, age is a huge thing as well. Like, AD and LeBron are not necessarily the same players we saw back in 2020, but I mean, the team's not that much worse across the board. It's just it's the opponents. Like, the West was good back then, sure, but it ain't nothing compared to what it is now. Like, there are so many good and up and coming and faster teams that just are blowing the Lakers out of the water at the end of the day. And we saw that this year with the Nuggets.
Yep.
Like, more than ever, I think that was a reminder of times have changed a little bit for the Lakers, and I think it's about time they try and change too, but it's not happening this season.